Hey, this is Eli Campbell. You know, Steamboat is renowned worldwide for skiing, biking, and all that our natural playground has to offer. We're fortunate, though, that the natural beauty here attracts more than just outdoor enthusiasts. From local legends to world-class acts, amazing musicians regularly play the venues in our little corner of Northwest Colorado. Join me as I explore the stories and experiences of these talented artists who bring unforgettable performances to Steamboat. This is your Steamboat Sound Check. Welcome to the Steamboat Sound Check Podcast, presented by McCreight Progressive Dentistry. I'm excited to have my first return guest to our podcast, actually. I've got Barrett Smith of Steep Canyon Rangers here. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks.
Yeah, now we spoke last June. Last time I spoke to you, it was a nice summer day here in the Yampa Valley. I think it's like 5 degrees outside right now, snow on the
Wow.
ground. And that was ahead of what was supposed to be a show for you guys in July here at the Strings Music Pavilion. Now, unfortunately, that was postponed, but still, silver lining for me is that I get to chat with you again.
Uh-huh.
And you're coming back to Steamboat here on February 2nd. What are you looking forward to coming back in the winter hours?
Well, I'm looking forward to skiing for one thing. That's like a nice silver lining to this whole thing. I mean, we love being in Colorado in the summertime for sure. But yeah, we've talked for years about doing, coming to ski towns in the wintertime where there's so many people around from so many different places, and it's just such a cool vibe with all the tourists around. And then because of this postponement, which we totally didn't see coming, we it gave us the opportunity to be in Colorado in January and
Yeah, it's
February.
going to be a great run. You've got 6 shows coming up here in Colorado at the end of the month. Before I get to a little bit more about that, though, the last time we spoke, you were talking to me from your home in Asheville, North Carolina. Here we are now, not even 4 months from the devastating rains and floods that came from Hurricane Helene. Asheville has shown remarkable resilience following those floods and recovery efforts and rebuilding. How's your hometown community come together during this challenging time, and in what ways were you guys involved? Is everyone safe from your friends and family?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a lot, that whole thing. First of all, yeah, I mean, my family and my house, I didn't have any damage at all. I feel like I mean, it hasn't gone away. It was pretty devastating and it'll take years to really recover. But just lately with these crazy fires happening in LA, it's reawakened a lot of what was going on for us because we're all watching that going on over there and it's just all the everything. My family is fine, my house is fine, and that's actually true of a lot of the city here in Asheville. Unlike over there in LA, it's not like you had crazy giant swaths of the city that were destroyed. It's a little more narrow, which I guess makes it a little better. But where it hit, man, and it was completely devastating for a lot of people. Which was, we didn't, none of us wanted that. Even though it wasn't devastating for us here in my house, it's like it affected the city so much and the economy of the city so much that we're all still trying to figure out what's what. Like you kind of hinted at, the another silver lining of the whole thing was that, you know, when reality turns so strange, and all the, for example, all the internet was cut out and no communications, everybody got real human real fast. And it just so happens that, like I would expect in Steamboat, the local population is turns out pretty damn cool. So when the communications are down and you're just walking around in the street in West Asheville, where I live, you realize, like, oh yeah, everybody who lives around me is pretty spectacular. Everybody's looking out for each other. Everybody's working hard to figure out who needs what and get it to them, and figure out who's the most vulnerable and help them. And just all the good people all the good people came out, and that was pretty awesome to be a part of here in Asheville.
Yeah, it's really in the worst times when you find the best of people. You're hearing those stories in California right now
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
neighbors are coming together and just how
Yeah.
people helped everyone get out of there. Now, speaking of kind of the devastation that we're seeing in a similar scale on the opposite coast, with the experiences that you've seen with Asheville and the recovery, has that shaped any way that you view kind of an artist's role in supporting affected communities like this?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we just kind almost just logistically, Steep Canyon Rangers, we haven't done anything, for what's going on out in LA, and maybe we will actually come to think of it, because we got a bunch of ties out there for sure. But when it comes to the disaster here, we quickly realized, hey, we're in a position just because of the job that we have a lot of, there's a lot of exposure to the world. We kind of stand on a platform, and we stand on a stage with microphones, if nothing else. We make a lot of noise as far as jobs go. And so it gave us an opportunity to make a lot of noise, and help. And we did a bunch of benefits. We raised a ton of money, ton of awareness. And since we were leaving, lots of people weren't leaving during that time. We were leaving for work and traveling kind of all over the country, and it was great to be on the other side of the country and stepping up on a stage and saying, "Hey, we're from Asheville, and we're real proud of it, and it's really hurting and right now, and here's how you can help." And as the time went on, and this is especially true right now, and this is a great thing on this little platform to say to anybody. Of course, y'all are really far away, but Asheville is a tourist town. It's what our economy kind of grows on, and it's what we take a lot of pride in. It's like great beer, great restaurants, great music, great art, great scenery. That's like our deal, and it's a great place to visit. Now, just because of the hurricane, like throughout the fall, I guess they said tourism was down 75%. Well, that affects all of us in the city, and it's turns out unnecessary. Like everything's up and running now. Asheville is ready to have visitors. People have asked, is it appropriate? Like, should we come there? And we're like, hell yeah, come to Asheville. In a lot of ways, it's one of the best times to come to Asheville. Everything kind of got flipped on its head, and everybody kind of realized what's important, and realized how important the tourism is. So yeah, that's my PSA for the day. Come to Asheville. It's really a great place to visit. It is actually.
Yeah, you should be working for the chamber, but I I can only imagine, being from a resort community and a tourist-driven economy, what that means for Asheville and how quickly you do need people to come back. And if something similar to happen here in Steamboat, how our community would come together and try to make sure to bring people back quickly. Now, as creative minds like yourselves, obviously these sorts of events can kind of influence one's perspective too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of going to be seen in any of the music that you guys are working on as we're looking ahead to what Steep Canyon Rangers is doing?
For sure. Yeah. I can't think of any like really, really explicit ways. Um, there have been, I can think of a song or two in the wake of the hurricane that's like really was really about the experience. Um, and we're in the middle of recording an album, and maybe one of those songs will get on the album. That's the most kind of actually explicit, direct way. But, we went into the studio for our first little round of sessions not too long after the hurricane, maybe a month and a half afterwards, when it was really fresh on our minds. So it turned out some songs that we already had been written before the hurricane, um, they yeah, they took on a new meaning. Some lyrics changed. Actually, now that you're asking this really good question, I'm realizing, yeah, the hurricane definitely affected our art. And the album that we release, whenever it is that we do, it'll be a little while, but it has the stamp of of this whole experience on the art, because it's an indelible, yeah, it's an unforgettable, like we'll never, hopefully never see anything like this, hopefully again. It was biblical. It was biblical. It was incredible what the water did here. It was incredible what it did.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
only imagine that it's something that, I mean, it would be impossible for it not to influence
Yeah.
your
It's true.
personality as well as your artistry. Now,
Yeah.
shifting gears a little bit, since we last spoke, you guys also released the Live at Greenfield Lake album, which has
Yeah.
been praised for capturing the magic of the Steep Canyon Rangers on stage chemistry. What motivated you to release a live album at this point in your career? And do you feel like it is a true representation of what people who are lucky enough to see you live are gonna, would experience?
Yeah. Yes. And yes. I mean, it's a very accurate representation of what it was like to see us like 2 years ago or so live, whenever it was that that show was. And we decided to do it because we like recording, we like doing studio projects. But we looked around and we're like when we pulled up our Spotify account for our band and looked, it was like, oh man, if I'm just looking at who's Steve Canyon Rangers and I look at the top tracks and I listen to these songs, we were like, whoa, that's not very indicative of what you're going to see when you come to a show, which is crazy because playing live shows is what we do. I mean, we're very much a live band that takes a lot of pride, and we approach the touring and the live show thing like I don't know, there's a little bit of jam band kind of mentality to it in that it's like things can be really open-ended and adventurous, and the set list is different every night. And there's a lot of spontaneity and a lot of stuff that makes any one show like really, really special. So we all of a sudden we're like, well, there's no representation of that that anybody gets to hear. So we need to fix that. So we took a little recording rig on the road and recorded a bunch of shows. And then the more we listened to this one show, at Greenfield Lake, which is this killer venue in Wilmington, North Carolina, on the coast, that's become a little home away from home for us. We were like, damn, that show is it's not perfect, like the performances aren't perfect, but the energy is so great and the night was so magical and wonderful. Let's just make an album out of that. And that'll be our way of saying, like, this happened on this night. And then we went somewhere the next night and another thing happened. That's not an album, but if you come see us play, for example, in Steamboat, it's like, I mean, it's really special to us. It's a special experience that we take a lot of pride in. So yeah, I don't know why it took us that long to record a live album, why it never occurred to us until that moment. But once it did, we were like, oh, this is stupid. We should have done it. We should do this once every few years at least,
Well, and I
you
think
know?
what's interesting about it too is that you didn't go into that show necessarily thinking that was going to be the show that was going to end up on an album. You were able to go back and say the energy is there. But when I watched the trailer for kind of the release of this album, one of the interesting behind the scenes aspects that you get to see is you guys as a band kind of talking a little bit about how there's not enough room for the whole show on the album. So you have to kind of figure out what's going to fit and what goes where. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning with an author talking about some of the hardest things as an author is to figure out how to get over releasing some of his best work and leaving it out of a book because it doesn't help the story
Yeah.
progress. How difficult of a process was it for you to kind of listen to this great show and say, this isn't gonna the land? And were there moments of disagreement amongst you guys as a band about what should be on the album and what should be left behind?
Yeah, it was pretty painful. Um, I don't remember anybody in the band having like really strong conflicting feelings about what should or shouldn't. I'm sure we like debated it, and we do like everything by committee because we're so tight and kind of on the same page just in general as a group. But it was painful. There was great stuff that just got left off, which was too bad. And then one thing that nobody knows at all, and I don't know if we were never told anybody, if you were there that night in Wilmington and it was a beautiful night and it was packed and it was great energy, we finished the show And it's a pretty big place, but we were like, oh man, they have a curfew there where you got to turn the PA off because it's kind of in a residential area. Let's say it's like 10:30 or something. Well, 10:30 came and it was not time to stop at all. Very clear, and they were making it clear. And so we came out on the stage with no microphones, and it's a pretty big place. And we got everybody to be very quiet, a big place. And we were like, all right, here's the deal, y'all. We don't want to stop playing, and y'all don't want to stop hanging out. So let's do this. But it's going to be pretty quiet. So, like, if you really want to hear, you got to crowd up really close. And like you're saying, when we did that, we didn't know we were making an album at all. If we'd have known, then we would have gotten somebody up close with some recording stuff and grabbed that as well. So when you talk about things that get left off, I'm like, oh man, probably the best part of the night was after the PA got shut down and we were just hanging with everybody. It was really special. But the
Yeah.
rest of the show is good too. I mean, we made an album out of it. We like the rest of it too.
Yeah, I mean, that's great just playing music in its rawest form for
Oh
fans
man.
that enjoy it. Now, the live experience captured on that album is going to be seen live here in Colorado in just a few weeks. You're playing 6 shows in 6 nights across the state.
Yeah.
Obviously, stop here in Steamboat Springs, the fifth of those 6 shows. With a packed schedule like that, it sounds like you're going to try to get some skiing in, but also you've got, driving through the wintry Rocky Mountains. Seemingly short drives can turn a little bit longer. How much tougher is it to stay energetic and keep that mental focus for a show back to back to back each night and bring the same energy that you want for the Colorado fans?
Well, I mean, this band's been together forever. You know, it's been like 20 something years and in those years, things have changed and we've learned a lot. And especially at this point in the game, like the band's really done a lot of work, a lot of sustainability work, just kind of vibe wise and self-care wise, as far as the way, like how we tour and how we travel. And like at one point we bought a tour bus. So we own this tour bus and we're going to bring it to Colorado. And a lot of decisions we've made over the years like that to say unto ourselves, well, if we don't make this a little more doable, we're going to burn out. You know, what can we, how can we invest right now in like buying ourselves just one more year when it's all done, or 5 more years or whatever. And so I say that because as a lifelong touring musician who's, you know, certainly like paid my dues and slept on a million couches and driven through a lot of nights in a car and all done all the things. It's not so tough. It's not so tough, man. It's pretty posh. In that we have a bus that has bunks on it, you know. So when we drive from wherever we are before Steamboat to Steamboat, it's like we'll get off the stage wherever we are. I can't remember what the order is, and we'll like get everything packed up, and we'll hang out and have a drink on the bus, and then go to bed, and then wake up in Steamboat the next day. Theoretically is the idea. So it's, I can't be like sitting here like talking a big game of how we're toughing it out. It's not for everybody. It's still, I mean, you are sleeping in a tiny coffin bunk on a bus. It's not like it's luxurious, but we'll get our rest and be ready to go in Steamboat for sure.
Yeah, it sounds rough. You play gigs play music for money at night and then wake up at the base of a ski resort the next day. Can't,
Dude,
someone's got to do it, I suppose.
it's pretty dreamy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not lost. I mean, it's not lost on me, that's for sure. We got a lot to be grateful for, all of us being alive in this time and place. And I certainly feel pretty grateful for what you just said, especially now that you put it that way. I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for joining me again. Steep Canyon Rangers is going to be playing February 2nd, Strings Music Pavilion. Tickets can be found at stringsmusicfestival.com. We look forward to seeing you here in town soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, man.